We're watching Gina Carano versus Ronda Rousey this weekend, and this is the birth of UFC's biggest competitor, and I also think it's the start of the downfall of these Doo Ho Choi, Daniel Santos, Goyslop co-main events. The UFC can't fuck around anymore. There's a new player in town. Obviously, they have Gina Carano, Ronda Rousey as the main event. It's not great. That's not sustainable. You can't put on freak show main events like that all the time, but that's not what I'm excited about. It's not the main event, not even Nate Diaz, Mike Perry. Francis Ngannou is a pretty long-term asset, but it's the undercard. Muhammad Mokaev was there. Saladin Parnassi's there. Robelis Despain is there. Jason Jackson is there. Adriano Moraes. There's so many building blocks that they have currently under contract that they can have as their inaugural champions and make a real league here. Also, the UFC has made so many boneheaded, stupid decisions on cutting decisions. Rinat Fakhretdinov, that's an undefeated prospect that was like 5 or 6-0 in the UFC that the UFC just cut for no reason because they're retarded. So, Rinat Fakhretdinov, they can sign him. Jason Jackson off of a win this weekend versus Rinat Fakhretdinov for the inaugural championship. Sign me up for that. Their inaugural heavyweight championship. Let's say Robelis Despain goes out there and KOs JDS in 7 seconds like he usually does. I would be really excited for a Robelis Despain Francis Ngannou matchup. Yes, Francis is probably going to win. Yes, Francis is probably going to grapple him to ground and pound TKO him. That first 10 seconds is maybe the most intense first 10 seconds. I will be so anticipatory of those first 10 seconds more so than any fight I've ever seen in the UFC. I really would want to see Robelis Despain versus Francis Ngannou. What else do you have? You can sign Paul Hughes. Paul Hughes is coming out of the PFL pretty soon. Literally all these tiny promotions that aren't the UFC, you can buy out their fighters. You have Netflix budget behind you. You think KSW is going to be able to retain their fighters against a Netflix's $250,000 a fight offer? No. Absolutely not. And $250,000 a fight, that's for like a contender. If you're a champion, they'll be giving you a lot more than $250,000. If Saladin Parnassi actually wins his belt, he's making $2 million a fight, something like that. But they can also put on freak show main events. Okay, Ronda Rousey goes out there, subs Gina Carano in a minute. Holly Holm 2. Bam, there's another main event. Obviously, Francis Ngannou can main event a card himself. Nate Diaz versus Dustin. I think Dustin's under contract. Nate Diaz, Jake Paul, MMA. You can make fun fights with Nate Diaz. I don't have one off the top of my head. But they just have such a unique combination of currently massive stars that are kind of older and actual long-term building blocks that they can play around with to make a legitimate long-term competitor to the UFC with real distribution and promotion behind it. Think of the Jake Paul Mike Tyson card. That had 125 million viewers. Obviously, this does not have Mike Tyson nor Jake Paul on it. It's not going to reach those levels. But the fact that we've seen the ceiling is way higher than anything the UFC has ever gotten is so amazing. That's such a great start for MVP and enough to make the UFC genuinely concerned. There's nothing that the PFL or Strikeforce or KSW or ONE could ever do to come anywhere close to 125 million concurrent viewers. Also, they have Jake Paul. Jake Paul said he's going to fight MMA for them. I think Tony Ferguson in MMA would be an awesome first fight. I don't really want to see Nate Diaz. Obviously, Nate looks so checked out, like he's smoking at the open workout, refusing to work out. He's going to get fucking smoked. But I would like to see Tony Ferguson versus Jake Paul in MMA. I don't know who I'd pick for that. I think that's actually a close fight. But with Saladin Parnasse as a champion, Rinat Fakhretdinov as a champion, Muhammad Mokaev as a champion, who could be there in middleweight? I actually don't know. Honestly, there's some of the divisions I don't know. I'm sure that they have scouting agencies and talent agencies that you can find genuine, prospects that the UFC would eventually like to sign to be your undefeated boxing type record champions and build a legit promotion out of this with pay that trumps anything the UFC has ever done. MVP is paying their fighters good. The minimum that these guys are getting, even these nobodies with 3,000 followers on Instagram, is $40,000 compared to $12,000 with the UFC. That's a pretty enticing offer for some of these shitters in UFC to go over. So, again, I really think that we're seeing the start of something long-term and a true, it will never equal the UFC, but true competition. I think every MVP card they ever put on will always trump a UFC fight night. That's like this one, a UFC Apex fight night where, sure, the main event is really good. I'm excited for Allen versus Costa. There is not one other notable fight on that. Or Wellmaker. Okay, Wellmaker's fun. See the return of him. Do Ho Choi versus Daniel Santos as your co-main event? No, I'd rather watch Francis Ngannou co-main event, thank you. Because the UFC knows that they have a real competitor on their hands with MVP, expect the McGregor card announcement on that Saturday. I don't know if they'll do it while on air. They probably will actually do it on air with the Apex event, which is kind of weird for a McGregor event, but they want to take the headlines away from this MVP card. So we're getting McGregor Holloway. That's done. We know this. This is known information. McGregor Holloway, I hate this fight so much. As the UFC, I'm excited to watch it, but I mean, as the UFC, I think that there are so many better fights to put on with the goal of getting McGregor an impressive win. McGregor is not beating Holloway. I think this is the worst fight they could have put on. When you combine chance to win versus how impressive it is if he wins, my choice would have been Oliveira. So Max Holloway, first off, McGregor's not grappling in his comeback fight. Of course, we've seen McGregor fight Holloway before, and he grappled him to a decision victory. He's not doing that. He's here for paydays. He's here to make entertainment. He will not smudge Max Holloway to a boring 10-strike decision. I promise you that. I will suck my dick on camera if that happens. That will not happen. Okay, so he's striking Max Holloway. What is McGregor's path to victory in any fight that he has now after being out for so long? It's a first-round KO. He already had cardio problems in the prime of his career. Now you add in the fucking drugs and the massive layoff, he will have one round, maybe a round and a half of cardio in him. No matter who he fights, he will have the worst cardio and be at more and more of a disadvantage as the fight goes on. So we're putting him against Max Holloway, one of the most legendary chins in UFC history. He will not KO Max. That can't happen. Know who he could KO? Probably wouldn't. There's a low chance of it. But you know who he would KO if he was able to land? Charles Oliveira, the BMF champion. We could attach a belt to Conor McGregor if he wins. What happens if he beats Max Holloway? Fuck all. Like, who cares? Max is coming off of a dominant loss. Obviously, it's impressive because he's been off for so long, but, like, does it compare to an Oliveira win in terms of how impressive it is? He's already beat Max Holloway. Like, do we really care? Like, yes, the answer is yes, we do really care. But compared to other options, I see a lot of people saying, oh, you should have given him Drew Dober, you should give him Bobby Green, Jorge Masvidal. Okay, obviously he has a higher chance to win those than an Oliveira or Max Holloway, but you can't have McGregor be the favorite when he comes back. It's meant to be an underdog story. Oh, he's been off for so long. Of course he's going to lose. Of course he's going to lose. Then he goes out and knocks someone out in the first round. That is the fucking fairy tale ending to a McGregor story. And if he somehow does that with Holloway, yes, this counts as that. This 100% counts as that. So if he finds a way to do it, good for him. I just really don't see that happening in this matchup. Holloway has been on his bike. He's been on his bicycle circling the cage and just kind of pitter-patter striking for all of his lightweight fights, and I don't see why he'd do anything different. At welterweight, I don't know. I think he should have a speed advantage. I don't think he's going to cut much. I do think McGregor has to cut to welterweight. So I think he'll have a speed advantage, probably not a power advantage. Well, definitely not a power advantage or a strength advantage, but just the biggest advantage he'll have is reflexes and experience, recent experience, being in fight mode and being locked in. The reaction times are one of the first things to go when you take time away from the octagon like McGregor has. So when you're going up against lightning fast Holloway, who has the chin of the gods, I don't see a path to victory against Holloway the same way that I did see a path to victory for him against Charles Oliveira. Obviously, we've seen the Khabib fight. McGregor's takedown defense is crazy underrated. Better than Holloway's, better than Poirier's, better than Gaethje's. Of all of these, like, entertaining strikers in that lightweight, featherweight, welterweight division, he has the best takedown defense out of any of them. Put Eddie Alvarez in there. McGregor has the best takedown defense out of all of them. And Oliveira, he's had good wrestling performances in his last two fights with Gamrot and Holloway. Before that, obviously the jiu-jitsu's great. the way that he gets people down to the floor is by getting dropped and being jumped on top of. His takedown game is not historically great. I think if it touches the ground, yeah, McGregor's probably done. He's getting choked out. I could see it being tough for Oliveira to get McGregor down. McGregor would have such a big weight advantage and size advantage. Obviously, and I think if size matters anywhere in fighting, it's in the clinch and it's in wrestling defense. That sprawl would be so heavy on Oliveira, and it would be so hard for him to outstrength McGregor to a takedown. So I like the Oliveira matchup a lot more for McGregor than I do the Holloway matchup. And if he won the Oliveira matchup, we would get the BMF belt around McGregor. Bam, perfect BMF versus either Islam or Taporia. I don't think you do Strickland. That's a really weird fight, but probably Islam. McGregor versus Islam. They both have belts around them. Bam, box office. You probably still do McGregor versus Islam if he beats Holloway, but it's just so much less likely, and I really think the UFC fucked up here. Speaking of Islam and McGregor up at welterweight, the welterweight division is the most fucked up division we've seen in so long. There's a lot of things that need to happen in welterweight for it to really sort itself out, so I'm going to matchmake welterweight real quick. First, has to be 330. Let's get it moving. Islam versus Gary. No shocker there. That's what we're doing. Get it done. Let's get it out of the way so we can move on. At the same time, I don't think that Protez should have to fight again to get a title shot, but again, it's just so log-jammed right now. Morales, Protez, it's going to happen at some point in their careers. Let's just do it now. Let's do it now. Make that I don't want that as a fight night main event. I want that as a pay-per-view co-main event. Let's give them like a really big spot. So when they go fight Islam next, or Gary, whatever, they have a lot of hype behind them. Biggest spot we can give them, pay-per-view co-main event. After that, there's Usman. Get Usman out of the welterweight division. Usman versus DDP up at 185. Again, there's too many people at welterweight. We need to move them out of the division when we can. So Usman versus DDP. Winner gets the title shot after Imavov, of course. Usman, you stay up there for the rest of your career, however long that is. JDM versus Sean Brady next. This is kind of NPC matchmaking. Everyone's making it, but it's the right fight to make. Obviously, JDM needs an opponent. Sean Brady needs to step up. There's really nobody else above Sean Brady that hasn't already been match made, like that I just said. So, yeah, JDM, Sean Brady, makes perfect sense. Yaroslav Amosov, that's another guy that's going to be right at the top of the division soon. I think he needs to take on the winner of Bilal Muhammad versus Gabriel Bonfim. I think that's going to be Bilal Muhammad. That would be an awesome fight. I think that would be so interesting stylistically, Bilal Muhammad and Yaroslav Amosov. I think Amosov would dominate him, but I'd still really want to see that. I think that would be fun. Joaquin Buckley. What should we do with Buckley? Let's do Joaquin Buckley versus Uros Medic. I think that would be a really fun fight. That would be amazing. I just thought of that off the top of my head. Wow, that fight would, like, obviously be under the radar when it gets announced, but when that fight's like 2-3 days away, you know that's going to be a banger. You know that's going to be a violent KO. I'm excited for that. Daniel Rodriguez is also there. I'm hearing a lot of stuff about him and Leon Edwards. No. Jorge Masvidal wants to come back. It's Masvidal versus Edwards. 100%. I'll be so disappointed if that's not what we get. Of course, we got the 3-piece and a soda, and we've never been in the position where we could realistically make that matchup. Edwards was always way too high in the division for Masvidal. Now we can make it. We have to make it now. What does why are we giving Daniel Rodriguez this favorable step up into the rankings? Why? Why are we pushing Daniel Rodriguez? D-Rod, your next fight, you got to go out of the rankings somewhere. Like, you have to defend your ranking spot. You got it off Kevin Holland, who's no longer ranked himself. I'm not going to say Mike Malott. I want to do Mike Malott versus Colby Covington. That has to... No, D-Rod, you can get MVP. There, let's give MVP a nice, favorable matchup. But at the lower end of the rankings. Don't reward him for that Sam Patterson fight, but you can't have him fight out of the rankings again. Like, he's already beaten a lot of ranked guys. D-Rod versus MVP. And unless I'm forgetting somebody, I don't know if I am. Oh, another thing that I would want to see, Jeff Neal, when he comes back, I want him to come back on this McGregor card. at International Fight Week versus Gunnar Nelson. Gunnar Nelson, teammate of McGregor, he's probably going to be on there. Let's see Jeff Neal, Gunnar Nelson. I think that would be fun. Who am I forgetting? I feel like there's just some big name that I'm completely forgetting at welterweight, and I don't know who it is. Obviously, Shavkat, I don't think he's fighting again. I'm not including Shavkat in this, but yeah, Morales, Prates, Usman, Gary, Makachev. If I'm forgetting someone, that means you are forgettable in the division, and I don't really care who you fight next because you should not be in talks of where this division's future is heading, so it doesn't actually matter.